Poke the Bear is brought to you by Fanduel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 165. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. We got to have some fun together at Bruins Training Camp here on Friday after we're recording after. And it was great to be back. So fun to be back. It's the Bruins gave us pizza, which is, what more can you ask? Once pizza comes into the equation, I'll go anywhere. So good day.
Even Ty had his Hawaiian pizza. Everyone was all set. Everyone had what they needed.
That's exactly it. Everybody had what they needed. It is funny that they always give them the trademark Hawaiian pizza. I am a fan of Hawaiian pizza. I've always really liked it.
I don't like if you had me rank it, it wouldn't be top 3 or 4, but the hatred towards it, I don't understand. Everything I like individually, I like. So if it's on a pizza, the concoction doesn't all of a sudden not work, right?
Yeah.
I don't get the pure hate that it gets. It's a little overreaction.
I've never understood it either. I mean, I think the pineapple makes it kind of burst. There's a lot of flavor in it, or the bacon's really good. Ham, I just think it works. I remember growing up, we used to get Hawaiian pizza from Domino's, and it was very good. Domino's pizza actually did a pretty good job on that. So,
and also don't just besmirch Domino's.
No, you will not catch me slander Domino's.
I think anyone can attest that it saved many nights in college. So,
oh yes, it definitely. Well,
you had Antonio's, but I understand. I know there's room for multiple pizza spots. So,
well, Antonio's isn't open out. Antonio's doesn't deliver, and it's not open after 2. So Domino's is really the only thing we had going. You had T. Anthony's, so we Antonio's and T. Anthony's is the real college pizza rivalry because they're pretty damn close.
I mean, does Antonio's, do they yell at you when you take too long?
Sometimes there's yelling, but T. Anthony's is a little tougher. T. Anthony's is a little more sandpaper,
as it should be. You head on a swivel. You got 400 people behind you in line. So
no, I agree. T. Anthony's, if I had to pick T. Anthony's, it's hard to pick against T. Anthony's. Love T. Anthony's. But anyways, I know we're getting everybody hungry. I think people like when we talk food at first because maybe it gets people riled up with hunger instead of us, talking about other non-related Bruins things. But
it would be funny if people were like, "Oh, thank Christ!" After months of them talking about the weather or the calendar or the different months of the year, we finally have training camp. The entire episode, I was just ranking pizza spots in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
That's what it should be. We'll do an episode like that at some point. We'll do a YouTube extra on that.
Yes.
Anyways, the big news of this week, no surprise, Brad Marchand named captain. I thought the social media team did a really good job releasing it. They did it, it was well done. I thought they might go back to the well of Sweeney, jokingly handing him the jersey, being like, "Nah, you have it this time for real." But well deserved. I don't think there's anything. I mean, just that's the guy. I don't think there was any question that it should have or could have been him.
Yeah. No. Again, it's not to say there isn't other guys who can step up in a leadership role. I think the Bruins, for as much talk or concern there is about what this team looks like without guys who've been here forever, and Bergeron, Krejci, all those guys, they do have a good core behind Marchand, guys like McAvoy, Pastrnak, Carlo, you name it. But they will have their time. This team will eventually be theirs. I think when you just look at what Marchand brings, the ability of having another link to that, 2011 team, but a guy that has been there through thick and thin, through the Chara years, the Bergeron years, learned from guys like Mark Recchi, a guy that leads by example. He's definitely I think captain's the same. How Chara ran things was different, how Bergeron ran things, and Marchand's probably cut from a different cloth than both those guys. But I think when you look at for Marchand, I think that when you view how valid a guy is as a captain or what they did to prove it, I think it all comes down to how sincere they are in terms of what their responsibilities are. And I think that's something that Marchand, for all the antics, whatever you want to say about his game over the years, I think something he really does take to heart is the responsibility and what is asked to be a captain. I think it's something that he mentioned. You learn it obviously from guys like Recchi and Chara, but I think when Bergeron became captain and Marchand's more or less been his understudy for years now, I think that's something that is not lost on Marchand in terms of how much it matters to, lead by example, be vocal, set the tone, both, in the room, on the ice, obviously. And also, for as much as, people are worried about, all right, Marchand has how many years left? Is it better to give it to a guy who maybe is here for 3, 4, 5 years as opposed to a McAvoy? But I think one thing that stuck out with Marchand in his opening press conference was how important it is to build towards the future. That's something that is not lost, even as this team is going into this transition where you have a new set of players stepping into the lineup. I think it's, he's very cognizant of what he needs to do in terms of the culture set down by guys like Chara, Bergeron, carry it on, make it his own, obviously. No player is the same in that respect, but carrying it forward that in 20, 30 years, guys who have never played with a Bergeron or something to still take to heart, I think some of those same core principles. So I think for as much as Marchand, especially maybe outside of Boston, is viewed as this WWE character or what have you, I think when it comes to some of those things, it's something I think he feels the burden of responsibility, welcomes it, and really kind of takes it to heart, which I think is exactly what you're looking for in a captain.
Yeah, and even you saw him in that opening press conference kind of describing what it meant to be captain. And, when they took him out to dinner and he was very anxious, thinking like, oh, maybe they're letting me down easy, maybe, and it kind of hits at the whole point of like, and you said it, there are other guys who on this team who are future captains. They're deserving. McAvoy and Pastrnak are the assistants. Like, they could have been captains, but it would have been really weird if they didn't give it to Brad Marchand. Like, it would have been a weird thing not to give it to him. And it wouldn't have made sense not to give it to him. So it clearly meant a lot. I think he's going to do a great job. I think he's earned it. I think he's got to the point of earning it. And it's, again, I think it's the right move. It's the right move. And it gives guys like McAvoy and Pastrnak a little more time to get more comfortable in their leadership roles and abilities. And whenever Marchand's time ends here, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years from now, whenever it is, maybe Marchand will start the TB12 method. They'll be more ready to be captain than I think they were now. So again, lots of future leaders in that room, lots of leaders in that room in general. But Marchand clearly the guy who earned the captaincy. That's for sure. So Marchand is captain. He's still himself. I mean, he's still, winking in videos and same guy. And Neil even said, we don't need you to change the way you play. I was not there at training camp on Thursday for day one. I was there obviously Friday for day two, but leading by example, high compete in these drills. I mean, there was a funny play, or not a funny play, but there was a play. It was a 2-on-1 in front of the net, and Lysell kind of tried to dangle around Marchand, and Marchand just chopped his stick, hand on the shoulder, pushed him right down. And I'm like, all right, well, he's come to play, and he finishes every check. And I think that's sort of a way that his leadership is going to sort of emanate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it has to be leading by example, setting the tone. And again, Marchand's a guy that I think helps in terms of having maybe younger guys cut into the lineup because he's kind of traveled that road. Wasn't this first round pick guy that got drafted and you knew he was going to be a top 6 player, kind of cut his teeth down in the AHL, started here as a 4th line guy and fought his way up off of kind of hard work, determination, having a chip on your shoulder. And I think he still carries that to this day in terms of how he operates, how, even if he's not the most skilled player or whatever you want to say about him, he rarely lets other guys outwork him. And I think that's something that, leading by example is such an important part of what it takes to be a captain. And he's done that year after year after year, right? I mean, you look at how often is it you see the Bruins do like behind the B and it's dev camp and these, younger players are stepping into Warrior for the first time and Marchand's working out. He's the one who's giving them a speech going into it. I think even DeBrusk last week more or less mentioned Marchand. I think a week after the season ended was already back on the ice. So, I mean, I don't know, I think knows, the amount of work he puts in, how seriously he takes it. That's kind of not lost on him. That I can only imagine is going to magnify and continue now that he's captain. And yeah, in terms of even just setting the tone, that's why I think one thing we've noticed the first 2 days of camp, usually this is the time where guys are just getting their feet wet, learning their new line mates, kind of seeing the coaching staff is evaluating guys early on. Very physical so far. You've seen a lot of guys get trucked over. Steen, I think, took a shoulder to the face today. I think it was last on Thursday, McAvoy and Marchand were in a pretty big battle along the boards, and McAvoy more or less got decked to the ice by Marchand. Again, hopefully no injuries. That's the last thing you want to see, but I think it sets the tone, though, early on that this is a team that, I think they've embraced maybe the chip on the shoulder of what the expectations are going into this year, and they're setting the tone early that, we have to atone for last year, but also we have to be a lot more physical, a lot more punishing. I think you've seen that at least translate over these first couple of days of camp.
And it hits the thing of they're not going to outscore you, but they are built to be a very difficult team to play against, whether that's, defensively in net or just physicality wise. Not going to be an easy team to play against. So early on, I mean, we're 2 days in, there's training camp on Saturday, first preseason game Sunday. What's kind of the early take on what Jim Montgomery's trying to build this season?
Yeah, I think early on, again, I don't think we should put too much stock into lines yet or, where guys are in terms of roster bubble. We'll wait until we actually get some preseason games, which thank God are right around the corner, literally starting on Sunday, as you said. But I think when you look at just how this team is built or what kind of identity they're trying to incorporate, as you said, obviously a lot of it's going to come down to defense and goaltending, which is a good place to start from. I think if you're a team that's in a bit of transition or you're retooling the roster, having your foundation be set in your decor and your goaltending is a great place to go. It's a good way to chart, I think, a pretty high floor of just always consistently being in games, and they should be, right? Like, you're still returning 5 of the 6D that before the trade deadline were 43-8, I think is what their record was, 43-8-2, I believe. So having those guys back, Lindholm, obviously coming off of that broken foot, but was arguably a top 3-4 Norris contender last year. I think one guy that's kind of, I wouldn't say is slept on because he's one of the best defensemen in the game, but even McAvoy, how much it helps is having a full year removed from recovering from off-season surgery, having just a clean slate over the summer can, make a huge difference in terms of how you go into a year. You're not feeling rushed. You feel like your game's already at a good jumping off point when camp opens. So defense is going to be huge. Goaltending, obviously, barring a major regression from both of those guys. You've got one, returning Vezina winner, and you got a damn good goalie as your number 2 that could also take further strides there. So the identity is going to be rooted in the defense and the goaltending. But I am curious to see how they approach, their maybe mode of attack up front. You listen to Montgomery early on, a lot of it physical. They want to be more physical, then it would be tougher to play against. And what does that mean? Is this a team that, I think you look at the personnel, whether it's obviously Lucic, but, Lauko, Beecher, Patrick Brown, you look at Geeky, again, not a bruising guy, but 6'3", Van Riemsdyk. They are a lot bigger up front now, and I think it's all going to be maybe changing about how they play because, it's one thing to, I think, be just this bruising, methodical puck possession group, but it seems like Montgomery wants to kind of toe that line between they want to be more physical, but also still play with pace. So we'll see how that maps out, but I view it as maybe being more, instead of rush-based, it's more of generating a lot more on the forecheck. I think you look at probably the best practice for a lot of these teams, especially in the playoffs, very high forechecking pressure, turnover rate, all those things. So if you're able to attack with speed, knock guys loose of the puck and do that, that's probably a sustainable way to not only, land some welts against the opposition, but consistently generate offense, high danger chances as well, which obviously is an emphasis of what Montgomery's looking for. So really early on, but I think that's, if you're looking at how they want to approach or maybe, tinker with how their offense is generated, I could see a lot more forecheck being kind of the focus there with kind of the added size they have. Snap into action this NFL season with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now is the best time to join Fanduel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything, from spreads to player props and more. And frankly, that's the best part about Fanduel, is that you can bet on anything. You want to bet on how many touchdowns Mac Jones is going to throw this year? Be my guest. Maybe how many wins the Bruins are going to have in 2023-24. Go for it. You can really do it all. So bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly.
So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
It's why they lost last year. They were out forechecked. That was what it came down to against Florida, and Florida sort of, made it big, and it's a copycat league. So yeah, I mean, defense, goaltending, forechecking, and the size element's huge. And it kind of hits at this. One line that I think has drawn a lot of eyes over the last 2 days is Lucic, Beecher, and Lauko. There's a lot of these lines that are put together. Lysell was with Bergeron and Marchand last year at the beginning of camp, and he's with Coyle and Marchand. Now, it's probably not going to be the opening first line for the Bruins this year. Lots of things there, but Lucic, Beecher, Lauko is an intriguing look at that kind of a potential fourth line. And that, Montgomery even mentioned kind of wanting and needing a left shot center in that bottom six. What do you think?
Yeah, it is really interesting. And I think, again, it kind of goes to kind of towing that line in terms of just what they're looking for there. Obviously, I don't think anyone's surprised of Lucic slotting in there. But again, I don't think you want a bottom six filled with kind of maybe slower, more physically dominating guys like Lucic. You still need to play with pace. And I think if you can attack with speed, you can also, I think, change your offense on the fly or adjust more when you have that speed. Like I look at, obviously Florida forechecked the shit out of everyone on their way to get into the Stanley Cup final. But I think you look at Vegas. Vegas primarily was a rush team last year, but in the playoffs, they had so much speed with some of these skill guys up front that they can all of a sudden switch into more of a forechecking approach, force turnovers, kind of, put defenses on their heels and capitalize in that way. If you have speed in those critical areas, you can do a lot with it. And I think, Lucic can bring that physical punishment, but you look at Lauko and what he can bring when his feet are moving. I think he's a guy that could do a lot of damage if you're trying to fit that, maybe not more heft, but a little bit more like physical capabilities with speed. Lauko makes perfect sense in that spot. And then Beecher's kind of the wild card, right? Like, again, we've talked about him and his skill set and how if he just, can consistently carry out of being just a strong forechecking centerman, the NHL level, the offense will come. And it's not to say that all of a sudden I'm expecting him to have a 20-goal season, but it's almost like Lauko, right? Like, it's not like this guy is dangling through guys or doing anything, but he's, every time he hops over the boards, he's moving his feet, he's making, chaos happen, he's causing turnovers, and he's potting the loose pucks. He's, getting pucks into great areas so they get potted by a line mate. Like, he's doing it organically in terms of how he's generating that offense out of that fourth line role. You look at Beecher and how well he skates. He's already a big bodied 6'3". If he can just, keep his game simplified, the opportunity should be there with that line. So he's a bit of a wild card, Beecher, in terms of maybe fighting for that spot over a guy like Patrick Brown or someone else. But in terms of what Montgomery seems to be focusing on in terms of speed with that physicality, I think there's really a lot to like of what we've seen from that potential fourth line so far.
Yeah, that line kind of is very interesting to me because, as you said, Lucic obviously is the slowest of those three. But I just think that the physicality he brings, if he's the first guy on the puck, on the forecheck, he's not fast, but he's hard. He hits freaking hard. And I think it kind of puts the fear in defenders. And if Lauko and Beecher can be in the right spots to either intercept those passes or to kind of close on the guy that first defender back is passing to, I think you have something there. I think Beecher's speed and Lauko's ability to affect the game, whether it be drawing penalties or things like that. I think that's an interesting fourth line. And you know what, Connor? You know what I like about it? There's two young guys on it. You're getting the young guy mixed with the vet. And I think that is something that is an interesting thing for this team to go. Again, it's day 2 of you're listening on day 3, but we've been through 2 days of training camp. Lots could change here. I mean, also like another guy, again, I was only there on Friday, so I just saw it Friday. But a guy like Danton Heinen, interesting. Playing with the DeBrusque, Merkulov, Montgomery said after Friday they were the best line there. I thought Merkulov was a little bit behind Heinen and DeBrusque, felt that he isn't quite at the level, which is why I think Merkulov, again, barring he's great in preseason games, which could be the case, just off of what I saw in practice, probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him to get some more seasoning down in Providence. We've said this a bunch, and it's fine. It's not like a slight against him. I still think he's there yet. But Heinen's an interesting one because Heinen's a guy that seems like a Montgomery guy from Denver. Had success with this franchise before, obviously drafted here and everything like that. That's an intriguing piece to, again, if that's the fourth line, let's just say Lucic, Beecher, and Lauko. Heinen's an interesting piece there on that third line. Again, long way to go, but that feels like a guy who kind of could have the in. I also noticed the Bruins just posted on Friday afternoon Twitter video saying like, more content from, photo day. And Heinen was in those photos. I don't think I saw like Cheason or any of the bubble guys. Heinen was in a shot of it. So I'm curious. I mean, what do you feel on him? What's your takeaways through 2 days on him?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at that third line, you can look at the fourth line. The eighth line has Lucic. I think you kind of know what to expect. But if that third line is someone you're grouping that you're looking to be more of a defensive stopper, again, it's kind of a new role for Geeky, but you expect just with, him playing 13, 14 minutes a night, it's pretty much 4 minutes more than he was playing with Seattle. He could really be a guy that could evolve into a very steady 3C. But you look at Frederick and, they expect more out of him, but he was also a sneaky good defensive forward last year as well. Put a guy like Heinen, who obviously knows the system, knows Jim Montgomery. Again, Heinen's kind of a divisive player, but I think where his value is he's a really solid two-way guy, really versatile guy. If you're trying to augment that third line into more of a responsible kind of do-it-all line, putting a guy like Heinen in there with Frederick Geeky, those make plenty of sense, especially if you want to maybe change that fourth line from being a group that gets a lot of D-zone starts to a line that is your spark plug line, more or less, right? Like you get over the boards to make things happen. Not happy for, not making things happen for the opposition, that's for sure. But I think that's something where you look at the third line, if they can be more of your shutdown grouping with maybe even how they change the Coyle line around, if he's more of a two-way guy up with DeBrusk and Marchand. There's a lot you can do in terms of how you want to change the different roles on this grouping, including making the fourth line very happy.
The happy and the people pleaser line. That's they're making people happy.
That's what we'll call it.
The people pleaser line, yes. Which is great. But yeah, Heinen's an interesting one because I think that's a Montgomery guy. Clearly likes him. Looked good on Friday. Again, we'll see what happens. I think the big test obviously is Sunday. Montgomery said no more than 8 veterans are going to be on the lineup for that Sunday game, which makes sense. It's going to be kind of a development game. For sure, which makes it more interesting. I'm sorry, in training camp, the DeBrusks, the Marchands, the Pasternaks, the Lindholms, McAvoys, I don't care. They're they're making the team. Training camp is fun to see.
Really? Yeah.
Right. Hot take. Break it. You can source me on that. But I think it, I think most people find training camp more interesting with the Lysells of the world, the low rise, the Heinens, sort of those bubble guys and those prospects. So speaking of prospects, Poitras playing on a line with David Pastrnak has a lot of people excited. I know he had a good day on Thursday, had a solid day Friday again. I think it kind of hits that like he's going to have a good training camp, but I don't know if I don't think now is the time. I think it's good that he's a really good training camp, but now probably isn't the time so far for him to be kind of up in Boston.
Yeah, I think it's, Montgomery did the same thing last year where I think he, as you said, Lysell had a few shifts or a few practices with Marchand and Bergeron where I think it's, you have some of these maybe prospects that have a little bit of a higher ceiling, especially offensively. Of course, it makes sense to kind of throw them a bone, get them, generate some momentum early on with some high-end talent. And if you're a guy like Poitras, who's 19 years old, first legitimate camp, a little nervous, good way to kind of ease those worries or get those butterflies out is, feeding a guy like Pastrnak for a one-time and get your confidence going. So it makes plenty of sense as to why guys like him or Lysell are starting off, in these featured roles. But we'll see, right? Like, I'm sure that Poitras is going to get a few reps or maybe a preseason game or two with a more high-end player and see what you can generate there. Like, again, I don't think they want to bring up Poitras and think he's ready just because they're going to staple him next to Pastrnak for the whole year or anything like that. But it's a good way to. So far, he's looked good. Like he's again got to put on more weight. He's I think 175, but I think the same things we saw at Dev Camp still stick out here. Really good passer. Really aware of where to attack the puck when it comes to winning battles along the boards. Again, not the most physical guy, but knows how to evade players, can kind of create space for himself off of just, shielding the puck positioning wise. Like, just a really sound, solid player for a guy his age, and that should only continue to grow. Again, I'm not setting any high expectations. I think if you're a Bruins fan, you should just be excited that you have a potential promising prospect down the middle that, even if he goes to the OHL, is probably going to light it up this year in terms of what he did last year. But we'll see. Like, again, if he goes into a preseason game and looks pretty solid, but, still seems overmatched, yeah, of course, like, that shouldn't surprise anyone. Check back with us on, like, Monday if all of a sudden he has 4 assists on Sunday or something like that and looks like he belongs. Then you start having those legitimate conversations. But I think it's good and it's fair, especially to a player like him who's got a long career ahead of him, to see how he does. This is his first camp. Ease him into it. Give him a few high-powered weapons early on and see kind of what he makes of it.
There's no rush. There's no rush. And I also think you don't want to relegate him to, not relegate, but you don't want to put him playing with guys who are on the third and fourth lines. You would ideally, kind of the way they have Lysell with these higher end players, because he projects to be a higher end player. There are lots of prospects like your McLaughlins, your Beechers, you even want to throw Merkulov in there, Lauko, who probably will make an impact at the NHL level in the bottom 6. That'll probably be their thing, unless Merkulov kind of finds his way defensively. But again, you don't want to put Poitras down there yet. You want him to sort of have that top 6 identity because he is a top 6 player. So encouraging stuff so far. It's only been 2 days. There's a long way to go before we get to the regular season. But again, I think the big takeaway, and we'll kind of discuss this probably a ton on Bruins Beat on Monday, is that preseason game on Sunday against the Caps, because that shows everything. And I think you'll get the most out of that. And hopefully the happy line is just, going crazy. That's what we need.
Just everyone's just sharing the entire, I mean, listen, I go to the regular season and Lucic is out there, there's going to be a lot of very happy people in the crowd.
Yes. Oh my God.
I feel like Lucic is the one guy who, even if, like, let's say struggles early on, what have you, people are still going to be like, it didn't look that great, but good to have him back.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be. So
lunch pail Luch. Yeah. I've said it. Like, I had a friend say to me, I think I've said it on this podcast, like, I don't care if Lucic is the worst player in the NHL. I'm glad he's a Bruin again. Like, just nature's healing type thing. And it felt good to even see him just out there as a Bruin. It's like, oh my God, like, just a Bruin, and good for him. Should be interesting to see how he plays out this year. And again, if he can mentor guys like Beecher, Lauko, some of these younger guys along the way, I think it's a great thing all around. But Connor, what can people look forward to from you over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe?
Yeah, we're going to be covered again now throughout training camp, whether it's observations, camp takeaways, roster battles, all that stuff. Obviously, we'll be over at The Garden on Sunday. We'll be back at it for that. Looking at younger players, guys who pop in those roles, all that stuff as we brace ourselves for a season opener on October 11th. So can't wait to get started. And again, every day we'll have some Bruins content out there over at Boston.com. So please read our stuff there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
And that game is on Nessun Plus. It is not on Nessun. Just so people
gotta shoo those Red Sox out of here first. So a little bit longer.
Yeah. Hopefully they're out of here. They will be out of here as soon as they possibly can. They will not be playing October baseball. But anyways, that's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky, presented by Fanduel. You poke the bear, listeners. Have a great rest of your week.